Hello, and welcome back to Magic Mountain My Way, an open RCT2 Let's Build series where I take the Six Flags Magic Mountain map in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and do whatever I want with it to learn and play around with all the new features that Open RCT2 has brought to Roller Coaster Tycoon universe, I guess. This episode, I've completely forgotten what I do because I edited all this footage together way ahead of when I'm recording this, so it's going to be a bit of a self-discovery moment together. Bit of a self-discovery moment, bit of a journey of self-discovery, shall we say. We are at one of the highest points of the map here now, and I thought it would be a good idea for an observation tower in pretty much the same exact spot as the lift is in the Magic Mountain map. I like the idea of there being an observation deck point here, and I thought that's a good location, and I guess it's a nice reward for when people get to the top of the mountain. Thinking about theme park design, I knew after people had walked up to the top of here, they're going to want something to do and some facilities to use, such as bathrooms, and there's going to be some food and drink stands as well to cover those bases at the top here. I still thought I should have stopped the sky ride at the top of this mountain here, but I never did, and again, thinking selfishly, I would like a longer sky ride personally, because I really like riding on them. And this is, I have mentioned before, sort of my greatest hits of what I enjoy in a theme park, and transport rides and observation rides are some of my favourite things to do, aside from like crazy coasters and whatnot. One of my favourite things that you can do using the tile inspector is change the pitch on certain objects like that. It just adds so much more dimension to the buildings that you can have in this game, and it adds textures and things. Great, wonderful, exciting. Descriptive there, Ryan, but it adds a texture and dimension that wasn't previously possible, and it's just such a simple thing, but it goes a long way. So. That fountain there is my favourite fountain in the game because it fills an entire square. I wish we had more of them, but we don't, unfortunately. I guess you probably can get them with custom scenery, but I have not dived into too much of that just yet, and I won't for this map either. I will do some custom rides, but custom scenery I won't touch for this playthrough. Let's build, at least. Something else I love about theme parks in general is an element of discovery, or an element of like peace and quiet in a otherwise hectic park. And this little lookout that I've built here, that you can look out over the log flume and over the bottom end of the park there, I think would be a lovely place to sit out of the way and hang out. So many parks do this really well. My home park, Alton Towers, is pretty good for stuff like that with their gardens. It's a nice place to get out of the way of the craziness of the park itself, especially being a regular. I don't often visit that park to spend the day riding rides anymore. It's more of a hangout spot for myself and the friends that I go with. Is this boring? I feel like this commentary might be boring. I have slowed the time-lapse down. I was originally doing it for YouTube, I think on +7 or +8, and I think this has gone down to +5 now, so it is a slightly longer video, but gives you a better idea of what I'm doing, I guess. I didn't want anything too over-engineered with the station platform, or like the ride platform I should say, of this observation, what are they called, observation towers? But I knew I wanted creates a little bit of a design here. So I go in and I use these, again, I use the tile inspector to angle these walls, just to create like a bit of a support feature, something that's there but isn't too invasive. Yeah. Again, I've said it before, those pole pieces there are some of my favourite pieces in the game, especially now with the ability to turn clearances off. It really does add to the realism of it all. Realism of it all? Maybe not. Maybe I feel like at this point I'm rambling without any without any relevant or important information. I don't know how many people actually listen to this commentary anyway. I wouldn't blame anyone if you watched this without sound. I'm just extending it there because though I liked the central piece, I did want a little bit of presence there, but by adding that, it just adds a bit of consistency, I guess. I did add a extra support in the center there, not support, extra like steel tile in the center there, because realistically this would go all the way down into the ground quite far as a foundation, as a support. So I wanted to add that there to give the idea that that's what it is. The entrance there is quite generic. It mimics the structure that's outside Magic Mountain anyway, and I just thought that was a nice bit of consistency there. It's, with it being generic enough but also recognizable, it does kind of tie the park together a little bit, which I quite liked. I also enjoy putting these what are they called? Canvas tent roofs, I think, at different heights, which is, again, it adds a bit of texture and dimension to the build. Sometimes I think, and I do it on a lot of my other rides, I think I do too many flat roofs, or like roofs of the same height, and I just think sometimes it can look a bit flat that way. But anywho, moving down now to a different area of the park, which is where the log flume is. Adding an additional flat ride in. I don't like riding pirate ships when I visit parks, but I do like watching them. There's just something about a pirate ship set on the water that's so pretty to me. You have the one at Europa Park, which comes to mind. Also Drayton Manor theme park in Tamworth has a pirate ship on the water, and I just think it's relatively simple idea, but I think it always creates nice viewpoints. Again, I try to think of a lot in building this map, or building on this map, of like areas in the park I would want to photograph and how that works, and areas of the park that need a little bit more kinetic energy of moving through it and stuff like that. Speaking about kinetic energy moving through the park, one of my favourite additions, which the original map had, I think, did it? I feel like it did. I think it did, and it had the streamline monorail trains, which look like the ones at Walt Disney World or Alton Towers, for example. I'm putting in a monorail, which I feel is needed. If anyone that's visited Six Flags Magic Mountain in person knows, the park is absolutely massive, and a monorail would not go amiss to help you navigate that park sometimes. And above and beyond anything else, if you're anything like me, I tend not to use monorails for the designed transportation purpose, and just use them for views and a nice sit down. But this does go all the way around the park. I do build this layout in this direction. However, I don't have it in here, but I do go in and just replace the layout, but in reverse. Reason being is how the transfer track for this works. You'll see in a little bit. It wouldn't have worked if it was facing this direction, or it would have, it just would have made it a little bit more difficult to use, shall we say. But the transfer track is going to go to the left of the lift hill of the wooden coaster, which still does not have a name. But yeah. This monorail has 2 stations, and I'm currently sat doing nothing, apparently. It has 2 stations, one here right by the main entrance, and then the other station is kind of almost exactly parallel, just on the other side, which is just down from there it is, just down from the log flume. And soon to be another edition, which you will see in another episode in the future. But here I am putting in the transfer. Now, again, I was looking at monorail transfers just to see what they look like, and typically what I found is they will have a transfer that will then transfer to all of the other waiting points. Nope. Holding points. Nope. I don't know what the correct term is. It'll just be a lot of switch tracks, I think. I could be wrong. I'm not a monorail expert. If someone is, please correct me and please tell me I'm wrong. But I knew I wanted enough to hold the 4 trains that this monorail has. But then additionally, I wanted somewhere that the trains could be moved to be either lifted off the track or worked on with a bit more space. So you'll see what I do in a second. I've added in a transfer type section here to get the monorail itself over to the holding area. And then I'm going to loop it underneath the lift hill here of the wooden coaster. And I mentioned way back in the episode where I built this that I was going to use this access road for something else, and this is that something else. My thought process behind it for access purposes is exactly as I mentioned prior. If the log flume was my goodness gracious, that is not what I'm talking about. If the monorail needed extensive refurb, or if a train needed extensive refurb, there is a place which you can get access vehicles up to that storage point and lift the train directly off, rather than having to crane it off at some other part of the layout and close off any other area of the park. Because realistically, it could probably be craned off and this wooden coaster still be operational. I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends on where in the world this park is situated for that to be a thing, but some places have tighter health and safety than others. I feel like I'm not making a ton of sense, but anyway, as you can see, this is I've got my transfer. That would slide over. The track on the bottom right, or the center right I should say, would slide across. The train that was getting transferred off would move straight forward, and then that section of the track could either move to the left should you need to get the train stored, or it could park straight forward, and then if you wanted to lift it off, it would then reverse and come around. I don't know of any monorails that have this type of thing, so it could be something that I've created for this that doesn't actually exist. But I was thinking practically, would this be possible? Is this something that would be helpful? And whether it's realistic or not, I don't know, but is it helpful from a from a access perspective? Yes. And it also adds more purpose to that service area up the top. I do also put a connecting path from this maintenance area across the back of that storage shed area and drop it into the path the other side as well, so that's some walking access all the way through there too. it is interesting how, I guess, enjoying theme parks, you do think about the practicality of theme park, like how it would operate, and what is the word I'm looking for? Not admin, not access. There's a word I'm looking for, and I can't think of what it is now. Infrastructure. I guess that's the word. You think about it when you research parks from an enjoyment perspective, but you don't really realize, I don't think, until you work in a theme park. There are things. It's no surprise to anybody. I work at a theme park, and I knew a lot of things, but also after being there for so long, you start to think, this thing would be helpful if we had this. So I start adding them into my parks that I build. Anyway, as I've been rambling, I've built the station building of the main entrance station for the monorail. Now, it's quite beige at the moment. I tried to keep it light and not very invasive. But I do go in here and add some colour in a minute. I go for a green, and I really like it. It's like a seafoam green. When I build the station for the one on the opposite side of the park, it is basically the same structure. I just use some different materials and some different colours, but it is basically the same type of structure. It's just altered to fit a theme a little bit better. Now, I was going to do this type of thing here originally, but I thought it looked a bit too closed off, and I wanted a tiny little plaza when you go into this, so I do go ahead and change the front of that building in just a second. And I did it also to be able to get a sign in, because I feel like this is absolutely an attraction that would have its own grand sign, even though I wouldn't necessarily say it's an e-ticket attraction by any means, but there you go. Do I do any more? I can't remember if I do any more than that. I don't think I do. No, I mustn't. I do lower this sign a little bit though, because it is astronomically tall. I wish we had a vertical sign in the game that wasn't as tall. Here you go, this is where I discover the green as well. I go ahead and change the glass in this station building to green as well, I think. I think I chose green because it's a neutral enough colour that it doesn't feel overly themed, especially with the beige, but it feels like stylized. For those the enthusiasts in England that know Icon, there was a whole thing about Amanda Thompson specifically saying that Icon was stylized and not themed, which, do you know what, is very fair. And ever since then, I never really thought about it, but some of my favourite parks around the world often stylize their rides and don't theme them. They just make them look pretty, which that can be anything due to landscape or just a paint scheme. For example, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, I really enjoy Talon at Dorney Park. I think looking at that ride is so aesthetically pleasing and it's so pretty, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's themed, even though it has a theme. Maybe I'm going in the wrong direction there. Maybe stylized is something a bit more close to like Helix at Leesburg, or Leeserberg, not sure. But anywho, moving on back to this station building. As you can see, this is basically the same as the one at the entrance. However, I have accidentally made it one tile deeper than the one by the entrance, so I do go in and get rid of that extra tile of depth in a second. But it's just a lot of browns, a lot of wooden themes as it's near the log flume. Again, this park doesn't really have themed areas per se, but it has like pockets of like woodlandy. There we go, and I'm adjusting the queue line as well, or the must be the exit path even. I just think it looks a little bit better without it being too too deep. I think it's not as invasive again that way. But yeah, I wouldn't say I have themed areas in this park apart from, unless, that's not a sentence. I don't have themed areas as much as I do just areas that are like stylized. There's that word again. But with that, we are coming to a close on this episode. So I want to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope to see you again in a future one. I can't remember what the next episode is. I think it might be Coaster, which you might be able to see in this episode, but we'll find out. Anyway, thank you so much, and bye for now.